All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Athlon says the Niners ought to trade for Trey Hendrickson. We're gonna discuss it coming up next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. On the Monterey Peninsula, Anthony Catania is the owner. He's at 831-521-5264. And he's a great follow on Instagram. He's at Sharp Corners 831 on the gram. We're also brought to you by Aura. More from Aura in just a minute. But first, let's get into the discussion on Trey Hendrickson. So this is the downtime before training camp starts. The 49ers had very little pass rush last year. Nick Bosa is a tremendous player, but, they haven't had that guy opposite Bosa. They tried with D Ford, and it didn't work out. They got to a Super Bowl. They couldn't get it done. They tried to draft Drake Jackson. He didn't work out. They went with Samson Ebukam. They got close. They went to a Super Bowl. They couldn't get over the top. They've tried with Leonard Floyd. Now he didn't work out. Now he's moved on. This year they used the 11th pick overall to draft Mikael Williams. They also signed Bryce Huff as a free agent, and they're trying to come up with a complement opposite Nick Bosa that can get the Niners over the top and get that elusive 6th Lombardi trophy. So, last year was only the second time in Bosa's NFL career, excluding the 2020 season. I should say he basically played the whole year. 2020 season was cut short by injury. Last year he played almost the whole year. But for only the second time in his NFL career, he did not reach double-digit sacks last year. He had 9 sacks. Now, it still led the 49ers. But the Niners' pass rush struggled mightily, especially down the stretch, trying to pressure opposing quarterbacks. Now, Bosa, on the surface, 19.5 sacks over the past 2 seasons. He's still very much a dominant player. He recorded a 22.2% pass rush win rate, which is nearly a 4-point improvement from his 2023 season. He's one of only 4 players since entering the NFL in 2019 to have at least 60 sacks and to have at least 60 sacks. I think Trey Hendrickson might have been the other guy on that list. But Bosa's been really, really good throughout his career. But could the Niners find somebody opposite Nick Bosa? I mean, that's really the question. Can they find somebody who they can depend on opposite Nick Bosa? So they moved on from Javon Hargrave. They moved on from Malik Collins. They moved on from Leonard Floyd. They replaced him with Mikael Williams, Alfred Collins, C.J. West, and then they signed Bryce Huff. But one guy that's out there that could be absolutely a difference maker is Trey Hendrickson. And Hendrickson is available. According to Mike Fisher of Athlon Sports, he's a longtime NFL journalist. He suggested that the 49ers should pick up the phone and call the Cincinnati Bengals and inquire about the availability of their disgruntled pass rusher, Trey Hendrickson. Hendrickson is entering the final year of his contract. He's set to earn around $16 million this year, and that's a bargain for a player who's had 35 sacks the past 2 years. This guy's had 17.5 sacks in each of the last 2 seasons. And obviously Hendrickson's frustrated. They're at an impasse. He skipped the Bengals offseason program, the mandatory mini camp he did not show up for the OTAs. And his future in Cincinnati is definitely uncertain. We're not sure if the Bengals are going to repair the relationship or not. They also have to repair a relationship with Shamar Stewart, their rookie defensive end, who was really drafted to replace Trey Hendrickson. And there's a lot of talk and speculation that they may trade Hendrickson before the season begins. And I believe, as Mike Fisher believes, that the Niners ought to jump at a chance to land Trey Hendrickson. It always comes back to the cap and how much money you have on the cap. Now, the Niners extended Brock Purdy. They extended George Kittle. They extended Fred Warner. They paid out those extensions, and yet still the 49ers hold an estimated $45.7 million in available cap room, and that's right there near the top of the league. A lot of that money's earmarked for the future. Purdy's 2025 cap hit is just $9.1 million, but his 2026 cap hit is $24 million, and his 2028 cap hit spikes at $57.6 million. So the Niners definitely want to roll over a big portion of their cap, and I think they should. I think it's probably wise. But Trey Hendrickson is really a difference maker, and this guy is such a special football player. I mean, he really is one of the very, very best. The motor runs hot. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN polled NFL executives about edge rushers, and they had Trey Hendrickson ranked 6th, and that was up 3 spots from last year where he was ranked 9th. And the quote from an AFC scout to Fowler, his ability to get to the quarterback by any means necessary is truly impressive. He can beat you with technique. He can beat you with his relentless motor. An NFL personnel evaluator added something that a lot of fans would agree with, saying of Hendrickson, he's probably taken for granted a little bit. So, obviously there's a battle going on between the Bengals and Hendrickson, who's 30 years old. He's threatened holdouts over contracts for a few years now. And, this year he's holding out. But, this is an essential player for the Bengals. They ought to pay him. He had 49% of the team's sack production last year and 32.2% of the total pressures from the Bengals came from Trey Hendrickson. So on paper, the Bengals should try to figure this out and get this guy signed. You signed T. Higgins, but you didn't sign Trey Hendrickson. That seems a little bizarre. That seems like maybe they don't have their priorities in the right area. But I love this player, man. This guy plays so hard. He played, his story is an interesting one. He played for Florida Atlantic. That's right. He played his college ball for Florida Atlantic, the Florida Atlantic Owls. And the Bengals drafted him in the 2017 draft in the 3rd round. He was the 103rd pick overall. I should say the Saints drafted him. So he went with the Saints 2017, 18, 19, 20, and then came to the Bengals in 2021. He was a first-team All-Pro last year. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler. He was the Defensive Player of the Year in Conference USA at Florida Atlantic. This is not a guy that just had one lucky year. This guy was a 3rd-round pick by the Saints. The Saints signed him eventually to a 4-year, $3.1 million contract extension in 2017. And, it's interesting because the Niners had Darryl Tapp as their assistant for a while, and he competed with Darryl Tapp. He was a teammate of Darryl Tapp back with the Saints. Tapp is no longer with the Niners, but was for a number of years as Chris Kosarek's number 1 right-hand man. And then March of 2021, Hendrickson signed a 4-year, $60 million contract with the Bengals, and he's been one of the best defensive ends in pro football. Now, I do think it's interesting that Jeremy Fowler talked to NFL executives, coaches, and scouts, and they ranked the top 10 defensive ends in the league. And this is how they have them ranked. Myles Garrett's 1, TJ Watt's 2, Micah Parsons is 3, Max Crosby's 4, Nick Bosa's 5, Trey Hendrickson 6, Aiden Hutchinson is 7, Will Anderson is 8, Danielle Hunter is 9, and Jared Verse is 10. And I would just quickly looking at that list, it's an impressive list. And if the Niners could get Hendrickson, they would have 2 of the NFL's top 6 edge rushers. But if you also look at that list, it may give you a pause and say, well, how important are edge rushers to winning the Super Bowl? Because guess what those 10 guys have in common? Those 10 defensive ends who are the best edge rushers in the sport, not one of them has a Super Bowl ring. They all have been shut out as far as Super Bowl rings. Nobody has gotten one. Hendrickson played in the Super Bowl. Bosa obviously has played in multiple Super Bowls. Nobody else has gotten there. Nobody else has gotten close. So how important is the edge rusher to winning a Super Bowl? I think despite, the fact that the top 10 edge rushers have combined for 0 rings, I know that would send a message that, hey, it's really not important. But I kind of think it is important. I mean, if you look if you talk to the 49ers and John Lynch and their whole mindset on how they wanted to build their football team on the defensive side of the ball, they wanted to put their money into their defensive line. And then they really feel like if they can move the quarterback off his spot and affect the quarterback up front, that any number of guys can play on the back seven. That you can have, you can even have some weaknesses on your back seven. If you have a great enough front four, it will cover up for those weaknesses on the backside. So do the Niners want to roll over a lot of their cap? Yeah, they do. Do they already have Nick Bosa, and have they drafted Aubrey Huff? Have they drafted Mikael Williams, and have they brought in an edge rusher in Huff to help their situation? Yeah, they've added to their situation. They brought in Bryce Huff. They brought in Mikael Williams. They drafted him. But a guy like Trey Hendrickson is a difference maker. I mean, he is a true difference maker. And if you really look at it, I think Huff is more of a specialist. He's a passing down specialist. I don't think he's an every down guy. I think Mikael Williams is, greatest strength is that he can play inside, potentially on third downs. So he could be an interior rusher. I mean, you could play Hendrickson and Bosa and Mikael Williams together. What's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you some money on the cap, and it's probably going to cost you, a third-round pick and maybe a second-round pick, over the next two drafts. The Niners have blown so many draft choices. You look at the draft, track record of the current regime. Dante Pettis was a second-round pick. I mean, they blew that. Trey Lance was a first-round pick. They blew that. I mean, they've blown a lot of their high picks. The Rams were in the same situation. They had blown a lot of their high picks. Go back and look. Les Snead, the current GM of the Rams, had blown some high picks. And the Rams couldn't get over the top. So they just said, you know what? Screw these high picks. We're going to trade for Ramsey. We're going to trade for Stafford. We're gonna go add a couple pieces via trade, and that's going to get us over the top. And they did it, and they got over the top, and they won. And Les Snead is still there, and he's still using draft choices. But for a couple years there, he's like, "Hey, we're having a hard time picking winners at the top of the draft. Let's trade them for known commodities that we know can play: Matthew Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, and we'll take it from there. We'll try to win that way." And it worked. And I think the Niners ought to do the same. They've gotten really close. They're trying like crazy to draft their way to a championship. Lynch, I'm sure, is hell-bent on getting that sixth Lombardi, as is Shanahan. Their careers are altered. I mean, John Lynch is a Hall of Fame player. Okay, he's had a Hall of Fame playing career. He's a great broadcaster. He can be enormously successful in a lot of different fields. He's got a wildly successful family with kids that are producing and doing good things. And, he's a winner at life. But this would cap his NFL career. If John Lynch could get this ring, I think, I don't think John Lynch wants to be a general manager forever. I think he'd like to go back to normal hours and maybe a normal life and enjoy himself a little bit. But he wants that ring as an executive. Kyle Shanahan, you could argue, is the best coach in pro football today that does not have a ring. He needs a ring. I don't know how he views it. But, his dad got a ring, and his dad got 2 rings. Actually, 3 if you want to throw in his OC ring with the Niners. So Shanahan needs a ring. He got really close with Atlanta as the OC. He's gotten really, really close with the 49ers in the Super Bowl and has fallen short to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid a couple times. If you're going to beat Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I think it's pretty clear. Your defensive line is going to have to bother Mahomes. Tampa's D-line bothered Mahomes. Tampa beat Mahomes and Andy Reid. Philadelphia's D-line bothered Mahomes. They beat Andy Reid and Mahomes. If the Niners are going to get over the top in the Mahomes era, they're going to have to beat Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They're going to have to move Patrick Mahomes off the spot. They're going to have to pressure the quarterback. They're going to have to do this with their defensive line. They were right to prioritize the defensive line once upon a time, and they just haven't finished the deal. Trey Hendrickson finishes the deal. You got Warner, Bosa, Kittle, Williams, CMC. They're all headed towards Canton, and they're all headed towards the twilight of Hall of Fame careers. This is your last best chance to get it done. It's now or never in a lot of ways when you're looking at this current Niner group. Nobody's going to remember if you had $46 million carried over from this year's cap to next year's cap, or if you carried, I don't know, $30 million over from this year's cap to next year's cap. But they sure as hell are going to remember if you got that 6th Lombardi trophy or did not. Niner fans will remember that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch got them the 6th Lombardi or not. They will not remember how much cap room the Niners carried over from 25's cap to 26's cap. So take your $45 million of cap room and make the best trade you can for a Trey Hendrickson and start dominating up front and show up on Super Bowl Sunday with a D-line that's like Tampa's, with a D-line that's like Philly's, with a D-line that can move Mahomes and bother Reed and beat the Chiefs and win that 6th Lombardi. Nope. There was a lot of talk in 1994 that the Niners under Carmen policy, that wouldn't have been a real championship because they bought Richard Dent and they bought Ricky Jackson and they bought Ken Norton and they bought Gary Plummer and they bought Deion Sanders. And you know what I mean? And there were a lot of people that were like, this isn't going to count. And maybe for a year or so, people were like, well, they had an all-star team, but it counts now. As far as the Niners are concerned, the Super Bowl that they won in Super Bowl 29 counts the same as Super Bowl 16. They all count the same. It doesn't matter how you do it, just that you do it. And nobody cares about where you sit on the cap. Nobody flies a flag over their stadium that says we led the NFL in cap room. Nobody. But if you win a Super Bowl, you're going to hang that flag. You win a Super Bowl, you're going to hang that banner. You win a Super Bowl, your fans are going to talk about it. So, damn the cap room. And in their biggest go-for-it year, don't forget your initial plan, which was to build a dominant defensive line that covers all of your other weaknesses on defense. If you can add Trey Hendrickson to Bryce Huff, Nick Bosa, Mikael Williams, and what you got right now, that probably is going to be enough for the Niners to get over the top and win that 6th Lombardi. I'd do it. I would do it. Some guys are scheme specific. This guy's motor is unbelievable. Opposite Nick Bosa, I think this is a very safe addition. The Niners went after Chase Young, but guess what? Chase Young dogged it. In the NFC title game, he didn't even bring it. Brought it like half speed. You won't have to worry about Trey Hendrickson playing half speed. He plays with his hair on fire. He plays incredibly hard. His motor is high revving. Trade the 2nd and the 3rd round pick. Give up the $30 million or whatever it's going to take to get this guy. Nobody's going to remember your place on the cap. They are going to remember if Shanahan and Lynch got that 6th Lombardi. Get the 6th Lombardi. This is maybe your best chance, maybe your last chance. Purdy's young, and I think he'll have his window open to win Super Bowls for years to come, but you got a very star-studded group, and they're all in the twilight of their career. And unless you want to build up another star-studded group, which is a very difficult thing to do, I would say this is the year to extend, and Hendrickson is the guy to extend for. So, John Lynch, the move is yours. Nobody's going to hang a flag saying, you carried over $42 million in cap room. But they are going to remember. The fans will love you forever in San Francisco if you get them that 6th Lombardi. Jed right now has got all kinds of parameters, financial restrictions, and this and that. But guess what? You're a made man with the Yorks as soon as you get that 6 Lombardi. You're calling your shots going forward if you get that 6 Lombardi. Trey Hendrickson and adding Trey Hendrickson to what the Niners have is probably the best route to that 6 Lombardi. Get it done. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to our good friends at Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. And now a word from our friends at Aura. Have you ever typed your name on the internet and seen all of your private information is online? Are you tired of receiving tons of spam calls from random numbers? Are you receiving more and more of these as time has gone on? Well, that's where Aura, the sponsor of today's show, can really help you out. Data brokers sell your information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, your email, your home address, all your records, your health records, who your relatives are. It's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use the information to help them access my social media accounts, my bank accounts, or any other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up. And best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to the link in the description to start your 2-week free trial. And thanks to Aura for sponsoring The Krug Show. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.